Today is learning all about your body, specifically about the measurements that you need to be able to fit easy pants. Keep watching. Hi sewing friends, my name's Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com, and this is a channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and this is the third episode of Let's Sew Easy Pants mini-series that I have been running on the channel. The first episode was all about pant patterns that could be easy for you to tackle as your first time making pants, and the second episode was about fabrics that are suitable for making these types of pants. If you haven't seen those, go ahead and watch them. I will leave them linked in the description box, and I will create a playlist for this mini series so that it's easy for you to just click there, and then all the videos that are coming in the future will go into there and it'll be easy for you to see them all when you're ready. Third episode is about measuring the body and how those measurements can translate onto a pattern. Super important steps to do when you want a pair of pants to fit you. If you've been looking at this topic for a while, you will see different information, different types of advice from different areas. And one thing that I wanted to point out was about the waist. Now, the waist reference that is most commonly used by a lot of people is the navel or the belly button. You see that commonly referenced as that's where the waist is. And it's not necessarily the case. I have seen some videos that say, you know, your waist is 1/4 inch above your belly button, or it's at there or below there or whatever. I don't want to do that. I don't want to give you a reference on your body because all bodies are different. And you know, the length of a torso is very individual, as is the length of the pelvic frame and the legs, and all our bodies are very unique. So the place on your body where you determine your waist is very personal. For some body shapes, it's easier to identify just by looking in the mirror. And you know, for other types of body shapes, you might need to bend down, do sorts of things to determine that that is the place in the body where the waist is. Now, for pants, it's a little bit different than for skirts or for dresses. Sometimes where the natural waist could be determined visually, but it's not a very comfortable place to wear pants. For someone that is short-waisted like me, I can see my waist easily in the mirror or when I wear clothes. But, you know, if I take into account my height, my total height, my waist is very up there. I have a very short torso, and I do not want to wear pants that reach up to there. It's very uncomfortable and it just does not look right either. Get a pair of pants that you like, that fit you, whether it be that you've made before or ready to wear. Find the one that you like, how it looks on you, and that it feels comfortable, where the waist placement is, and that you think, this is where my waist is. This is where I like my waist to be. And take that as a reference for your body, for where you're going to measure your waist to make your own pants. So you're going to see me dressed up like a ninja. I'm dressed in black, in tight-fitting clothes, that, you know, so that there's no bulk in the way of you seeing what I'm doing. And I'm using a 1/4 inch elastic, and I'm using a tiny elastic, a narrow elastic, because I don't want the elastic to be a reference for anything. And I want to measure up to where the waistband of pants are going to be. I've seen other types of measurements that measure below a waistband, but actually waistband widths and everything vary with different patterns. So I don't think it's a very useful reference to have. If you want to measure your crotch length, it's good to know the total amount that you like on your body, including where the waistband will be on pants. And using a really wide elastic does not help that purpose. So tiny elastic, little bit. Tape measure. I do reference metric and imperial. So if you have a tape measure with centimeters and inches, it could be super handy. This is the only one I have. Most of my other tape measures are just metric, and my mind works in metric. But for you, I will always be referencing both types of measurements in the video. We'll be mainly focusing on the crotch length, the total length, and then separating that into the front and the back, the crotch depth, the waist, and the hips. Basically, the upper area of the pants. That is what I'm mainly focusing on right now. Other measurements like waist to knees or inseam will come a bit later, but for now I'm interested in those. I want these videos to be super clear and not be too extensive, too information rich, because I know that information can be a bit overwhelming if it's just crammed into too much. Let's hop over to see me dressed like a ninja in black, and you can see what's gonna happen. I've got some fitted clothes here to do the measurements, but you would probably be doing this with your undies on. I obviously can't do that on camera. And I've just got black tights and a cami so that you can see the outline of my body and what I'm measuring. I've got a 1/4 inch elastic just around here, and this will actually help determine where the waist is. It's not as visible as apparent. And I've heard people say it's where the navel is, and actually my waist is up higher than my navel, and I'm just gonna put a sticker there where my belly button is. As you can see, I am very short-waisted. Look, that is actually my waist right there. It's a good 3/4 of an inch higher than my belly button right there, and you can clearly see there where I bend. It's actually where my waist is. Now at the back, you will see a tilt. It is higher at the back and then it goes in at the front. And in my case, I actually like my pants to be here at my waist at the back, so that when I sit, I don't have issues and it's comfortable. But then there's gonna be a tilt, and I would like my pants to finish above my belly button. There is my belly button right there. If I measure up, it's about maybe 1/2 inch above my belly button. So this is how I measure my rise. Now to measure your rise, you just need a tape measure, and I'm not using any tools or anything. This is a tape measure in centimeters, metric, and inches. And if you've been enjoying my videos, you might benefit from getting one of these, because I talk about metric and inches when I talk about measurements. So just put that there, and I use a really narrow elastic so that it's really clear. It's not gonna confuse where I'm measuring from. And I'm just gonna bend over and bring this forward to where I like my pants to be on the front, which I mentioned was about 1/2 inch above my belly button, and that is 29 3/4, 75 centimeters. You need to divide this measurement into what is your front and your back measurement, and it takes some contorting to do, but you can just go in there, see where the inseam is, the middle of the inner leg there, and see where the tape measure hits right there. And so this is how you know that this is the back and the rest of your measurement is the front. This measurement at the front will be shorter than the back. What you'll see in patterns is that it's always longer at the back and shorter at the front. And this is a measurement I would use without any ease if I was measuring to make jeans or really fitted woven pants. For looser styles, you would add about 1 inch. So let's bring it down 1 inch. There, so it would be a bit looser. You can see it has room to wiggle there, so it won't be excessively tight there. So for the pants that we're talking about, I'm adding 1 inch to the fitted measurement there, just releasing it 1 inch, and you can see I have some space there. Remember, I want my pants to finish above my belly button, and it's just a tad below my natural waist on the front, although I do want them to finish at my natural waist on the back, as you see. It's just more comfortable that way. There is a measurement called the depth, and that's just basically measuring from here to the crotch. I'll show you that on the pattern later. The other way to measure that is with an L-shaped ruler that I don't have, but I just made one out of cardboard. It's just important that it's got a 90-degree angle there, that's very accurate. This is probably 1.5 inches wide like that, and I just made it from a random cardboard box. And you would put that between your legs, making sure that this is straight down to the floor, that it's not like tilted. It's like you're riding the thing. And you can see where the mark of my elastic is right there. And this is where I would do a line. You can see a red line right there. And then if I measure that, compare it to what I measured on my body, it's about the same. So you can see the red line there, matching where I want my pants to hit. And now, when you see pants, you won't see a rectangle, of course. You'll see a curve going in like that. And this shape of the curve is what varies for so many people. If you put this on the back here, like that, the curve at the back will also vary depending of if your butt is higher, it's fuller up, or fuller down at the bottom, or it's just flatter all the way around. You know, we are so different. So the space you see there is what is going to form the curves, which are actually not measurements, they're just shapes. And you can't really assess them just by eyeballing sometimes. Now, the other thing that you need to measure, the waist measurement is important, the circumference. So where I have my elastic there, I would go and measure the circumference there, nicely fitted, but not like sucking your tummy in or like holding your breath, you know, just normal. And then the hip is also for some people hard to determine. Now, I've heard people say my hip is X measurement, but then my fullest part is below. And this is not your hip right here, where the bones are. Where are the bones? Right there. This is a high hip. So this is not the measurement that you use to choose your size on pants. What you use is the full hip. It's usually from the waist down, a good distance depending on the body. You know, that crease there, that is usually where the hip is. So that is there from the side. You can see I'm at the fullest part of the hip right there. And this is where I would measure my hip circumference. So I would just take this, put it around. Just normal, you know, nothing too tight. I can still move this like that. And then you would write that measurement down. Now I'm going to stand sideways and try to overlay some images of pattern pieces so that you know what the relationship is to the body. So if I'm standing there, you will see the back leg there and the front leg there, and how the curve in between there that unites this, that is the most individual part of pants that relates to your body, more than the circumference and the distance from your waist to your hip, or that sort of thing. So I hope that was helpful. You can see that you are perfectly able to take measurements with this to be able to separate the total crotch length from the front and the back. It is easier if you ask someone, show them the middle part of the leg where you want the measurement to be, and ask them what is the number that they see there. I think it's much better to do that than bend over and contort, because your tape measure might move a little bit and you might get skewed measurements. So if you have someone that's very close to you, you know, a family member, a friend, you know, ask them to just look down there and see what that measurement is. I have asked for help, and that's why I'm really sure that those are my measurements. Now, there are more technological things out there, like flexible rulers that you can bend and measure your length and remove it, and it'll have the shape of the curve right there. You can also replace that with a long thing of tin foil, and that will give you the shape that you can measure as well. I just went the basic way. I try to keep sewing simple, and going along with how I think, I just did it the simple way. I don't have the flexible ruler, and I couldn't go and get tin foil things either. Now, I just want to make it clear that those are my measurements. They should not affect you at all. It's just I give them to you there so that you can see how I determine them and how those are going to be in reference to the pattern. So you take your own measurements, you write them down, look at them frequently. I do look at them frequently. The crotch length does not vary that much with weight gain, I have found. The hip and the waist circumference does vary more with weight loss or weight gain, from what I can see. After you've done some work with your own body, measured everything you want to measure, do it with your undies in privacy, of course. I did it fully dressed. Write those down, choose your easy pattern that you want to start with. I recommend a pull-on pant. The most important measurement there is the hip in order to choose a size, not the waist that much. Now, I have seen some patterns say choose based on your waist and then blend out or in, depending on what the hip measurement is. And that might be and is an issue for a person with a pear shape that has a smaller waist and a larger hip, you know, a larger waist to hip ratio, because they are pull on. They need to go over the hips in order to go all the way up. And if the waist measurement on that shape is smaller than the hips, they'll get stuck below the hips and you're not going to be able to pull up your pants. So I would suggest just choosing on the full hip, and then depending on whether the waist is larger than the full hip for that size, you would blend out to a larger waist, and that's it. But don't make the waist smaller than the hips. Try not to do that. Patterns usually have quite detailed body measurements and finished garment measurements so that you can see what you can do. But we'll go over blending sizes later. Now, when you know all these numbers about you, about your particular body, what do you do with them? How do you see how to translate those onto a pattern? And I have chosen a pattern. I'm not going to say which one it is, just one of the patterns that I'm working on. And I've done certain things, and I'm going to show you basic ways that you can measure your depth and your length on the front and the back. So let's go and see that. Here is a pair of pants, can be any pair of pants, and two things really need to happen to measure. Basically, you need to draw your seam allowance. If it's 3/8, if it's half an inch, if it's 5/8. In this case, I've drawn with red the 5/8 seam allowance there, and then down there, you can see that intersection there. And to get a real feel for what the total length will be, including the waistband, I have the waistband folded and pinned at the 5/8 seam allowance to mimic how it's going to be when it's sewn. So then I have the total finished length including that. I don't think it's very helpful to measure without the waistband, because waistbands have different widths. That always changes with pants, and I would rather put the waistband of the particular pattern that you're sewing to know. So you would measure from that end up there down. Now, when I measured with my little makeshift L ruler, I don't have a length right there. If I wanted to measure it, I could. And when I measured it on myself without the L shape, I got this measurement, 28 centimeters. From the line that I made there, that in inches is 11 inches. Right there. If you have a ruler, then you can measure with one that has numbers on it, but I just don't think it's necessary. You can measure what that distance was with your measuring tape. This is not measuring the length of the rise. It's measuring here. So you have that bit there from the bottom there at the crotch. If you draw a line straight across to the other side of the pant, you will have that distance there. That is the depth, okay? The length is this, the curve there. So there'll be very different measurements. Now, if I compare putting the edge of the L shape right there on that intersection, meeting that L shape there with the seam line, and comparing up here where my depth is, you can see mine is a little longer than the pattern, about 1/4 inch. But now when I want to measure the length of the rise at the front, I have to put my tape measure right there on the seam line. You can see there the line that I drew. And for this particular pattern, that measurement is almost 12 inches. When I measure on my body, this front rise, my measurement is 12¼ inches. So I would say that this front for this pant is almost perfect. You know, this measurement here is not this measurement there. This is a straight measurement. This one considers a curve. Find out what these things are on your body to be able to compare them to the pants that you're making. Okay, this is the same pant on the back, and I have also pinned on the waistband, as it will be, with the 5/8 seam allowance there on the waistband, and I have also drawn the seam line there, and then there, down there. When I measured my total length of my rise, that composed of the front and the back together, right? But I did separate them into two. And so my back rise length was 17½ inches. And if I go and measure this at the seam line right there, following where you mark the seam allowance, okay, this measures 16½ inches. And my measurement was 17½ inches. So somewhere along this length here, I'm an inch short. And that might affect the way that these pants fit me, of course. Considering also that we need some ease. So I'm not looking to have my body measurements on this. I want the pants also to have a little bit more. and the same for the front. But you know, this is a good exercise to do with a pattern. I would recommend making a muslin just as is, based on your hip circumference and the waist, and going from there, noting in your head what the differences you think you might find, and seeing if that translates to the body, because the shape of these curves also affect the way clothing fits you. Different pants are drafted differently, so sometimes you'll see a curve here that's deeper, sometimes a shape that's more shallow, less curved. When you've been making pants for a while and have tried different patterns from different brands, different companies, you might start seeing subtle changes in the shapes of the curves. Now, I don't have an L-shaped ruler or two or any of that, so I made some from a cardboard box, very basic, and this was very helpful to determine my crotch depth. Now, there's two of them here to resemble what a pant is, and basically it's a rectangle, right? One is shorter, this is the front, one is longer, that's the back, and there you will have the back curve going in here, the inseam there, and then the front curve going up there. Now, the type and shape of this curve is super individual to you, to your body. And this is where a lot of fitting issues come in, because different companies have a different shape that they draft for there. And you might see those subtle differences after a while. At first, you will just see curves. You won't really notice what the shape of those are. And they can really affect the way your pants fit. Okay, so this is the back, this is the front. When you see a curve here that is shallow, more shallow, it means that that was drafted for a fuller bottom, and a shape that's more deep like this, more scooped, is probably drafted for a bottom with less volume. And so you can see that on patterns. I've certainly seen it and have noticed the difference between brands and the shape they have. And so if you make a pattern adjustment on one pattern, if you needed to do certain things to that particular pattern, it doesn't mean that that's an adjustment you will need for every single pant that you make. I just wanted to make that clear. If I needed to lengthen the rise on a pattern or scoop out the curve at the back for one, it doesn't mean that I'll need to do that on another pair of pants, because most likely the curve will be different as well. Same as at the front. This is the front, this is shorter. You have a curve here. And so depending on the block used to draft that pattern, you'll see sometimes a curve that's more shallow, and sometimes you see one that's more scooped down. So those types of shapes, you will see them both in the front and the back. And if you're not accustomed to seeing them, you might not realize, but you will certainly see how that looks on your body. And if the fit is not right, you will have different types of things on that muslin that are going to show you what is wrong. Either lines in different directions, folds, pulling, drag lines, all sorts of things that can happen in the front and the back. And so I'm going to leave this video here. The next one will be super practical, and I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. I have been working on multiple amounts of pants. They are just terrible green muslin fabric, and I'm going to be showing you how the most common fitting issues look like on the body. All sorts of unsightly things I'm going to be showing you on my body, and I'm trying to replicate those on these fake ones. It doesn't mean that I had that specific fitting issue on the particular pattern I'm just playing with. It's just that I am creating those to show you how it looks. And then I've created little tiny pants like this. The red lines are the seam allowances that I've marked. Mark the grain lines. Got the front, I've got the back. And I'm going to be showing you what the pattern adjustments are in order to improve and or correct those fitting issues. So these will continue in subsequent videos. You know, this is a series. I can't cram all the information into one, but I do hope this one was very useful for you. Go ahead, take your measurements, choose a pattern you want to start working on, measure your pattern, measure your body, figure out in your mind what are the changes that you think you might need for length issues, depth issues, that sort of thing, basic things. Make sure that you print out a pattern that is going to fit your hips. Don't try to size down or anything, just trust the pattern. And on the next video, I'll show you a muslin, talk about making a muslin and some of these fitting issues. So I hope to see you then with the next episode of this Let's Sew Easy Pants series. And yeah, the next video will be about other things, probably dresses. This is very time intensive for me to produce and to plan. So they are not going to be coming in a row, just so you know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.